That is the key to coaching. If you come out of a session with more energy than before you went in,
Mhm.
that's how you know that you're working with a good coach. So if you decide, I'm going to go find a coach, whoever it is, it's not Ann Holm, it's somebody else, and you say, I want a sample session.
Mm.
And if you walk out of there with a higher level of energy than when you walked in,
Mhm.
you know you're on the right track.
Wow. This is the Superhuman Mindset, and today we have an amazing guest. Guys, I am so excited for this woman to join us here. She is just phenomenal. So, sit down, make sure you are very relaxed. You have your notebooks and you are going to take notes because she is going to blow your mind away. She is in the person of Ann Holm. So I know that she's been in the business for over 25 years. She started off as a speech pathologist. Come on, like as a speech pathologist? Come on, people. Just blows my mind. Working with the brain and all the things that comes with it. And then now she has become one of the best executive coaches in the Midwest. And we've done lots of sessions together. I have learned a lot from her. She understands the brain like no other person. And so, without further much ado, let's bring Ann home. Hi, Ann.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here. You said so many kind things. Happy to be here. Happy to
Yeah.
share.
Yeah. How's your day going so far?
It's going great. It's going great. It's much to be grateful for, and with the right mindset, every day is a good day.
Nice, nice. So I'm just gonna jump right into it because I know when me and you start talking, I just want to get as much as I can.
Yep, absolutely.
What made you so you were a speech pathologist?
Yep.
What made you move from there to be a coach? And
Okay.
what that entail?
That is a really good question, and I actually love telling the story because I think it helps others to make a similar jump if they want to.
Mhm.
So I was a speech pathologist, actually for 25 years, and then I've been coaching for over 10 years. So it's actually 35 years in the business of helping people be at their best. But when um, I worked with brain injured people and helped not only recover from their injuries, but to get them into a position where their life was meaningful again. Because a lot of times when you have something like a major brain injury, you have to rethink everything, and you need to figure out why. What's your why at this point? So I did that for a really long time, and I really enjoyed it. And what actually got me out of the business was a couple of things. Number one, it was all of the uh, electronic record keeping that they brought into the medical setting, and it made it very difficult to get into the flow with somebody and get them inspired about their life when I was also having to pivot over to my computer and start, you know, doing the electronic record keeping. So it really was very disruptive to the process of working with these patients. So that was one of the reasons. The other reason was I my last child was going off to college, and I thought to myself, well, they're going to have all kinds of exciting things going on. What can I do to share with them what I'm doing? Because a lot of times, if they go off to college, and then you're just kind of like living through them almost. So I thought, well, as an example to them, I think it would be a good idea to see where I could stretch myself given this new situation. So that's how I got into it. It's always had the theme of helping people uncover their potential,
Mhm.
but I just shifted into a
So
different world.
yeah, let me jump in right there. And I like that you brought
Okay.
it up. So you talked about helping people uncover their potential.
Yep. Yep.
I know a lot of people who just say, "Oh my gosh, what's a coach going to do for me?
Oh yeah.
Why do I even need a coach? What
Yeah.
does the coach do?"
So a coach is it's interesting. So coaches are not therapists.
Hmm.
Coaches are not consultants. What coaches serve the role of is helping an individual um, discover by way of co-creating the process. So I'm not going to say to you, Felix, you're an ENTP, and this is this is what the ENTPs are like, and if you listen to my advice, you'll be fine. What I want to say to you is this is what a typical ENTP looks like. How does this play out in your life?
Hmm.
What are some of the advantages so that you start thinking about yourself, you start developing yourself. So what a coach does is help you to get to know yourself better by way of sort of taking you on a journey, but never telling you this is who you are.
Oh, really? So does that? So if I want to be a millionaire, a billionaire,
Yeah.
do I need a coach?
Yes, I think so. The coach serves also as a sounding board.
Mm.
So we only have our own perspective. I mean, that's the way it is. And so to get to these other perspectives, you might need somebody to hear you out. You might need somebody to ask you a question to help you clarify. Well, what is it that you are shooting for? What's the um, if you want to be a billionaire, how do you want to get there?
Mhm.
What might you run into? How might you get in your own way? In our conversations we've had in the past, we've talked about this idea of saboteurs, this idea that you can get in your own way sometimes.
Okay.
And so identifying that and deciding what to do about it is a very powerful coaching
Yeah.
process.
So I like that you brought that up. Maybe this is a great time for us to talk about the saboteurs. For people who are listening or who are watching who
Yep.
don't know
Yep.
what a saboteur is, what is a saboteur?
Yeah, so saboteur is a French word, which means, it's the thing that sabotages. So now when we're talking about saboteurs, we're talking about a set of characters that each of us has to a certain degree in which we get in our own way.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. For me, one of my saboteurs is avoider. So when I don't want to deal with something, I just see if I can kinda get out of its way or hope that it goes away, and
Close your eyes.
yeah, like, "Oh, yeah, it's just gonna no problem." But the issue is and the blind spot around having an avoider saboteur is things are actually getting worse because 'cause they're sitting on the back burner just picking up steam, and so I might be saying, "Well, I'm kind of a flexible person who can live with anything."
Mhm.
That's sort of the lie that the avoider saboteur tells you is, "Oh, yeah, this just shows you're flexible. You just love things to be peaceful. You like things to flow." Well, that's what when you are getting in your own way, you're actually fooling yourself because it's sitting on the back burner just getting worse, or there's somebody who needs an answer
Okay.
and you're not providing it, and you're just kind of slithering away. So there's lots of different kinds of saboteurs. That was just one of them. There's 9 that are
Okay. So is it more when you say get in your own way?
yep,
Is it something that we know we do, or it's just something that's become a part of us? I think I've seen you give an example of, um, like if you have, let's just say, a ding on this wall right now.
yep,
There, I see it the first time, but I get to a point where I don't even notice it anymore because it's a
yes.
part of me. Is that what that is?
Yes. Now this I love talking about this part of it because it's really boils down to this idea of self-awareness.
Okay.
And so the Harvard Business Review did a research study in 2018 where 95% of the respondents described themselves as self aware. The actual number that were truly self aware was more at the level of 15%.
Oh wow.
So it's a huge discrepancy. And let me describe what I mean by self awareness. So Self-awareness occurs in layers, all right? So, and I saw this, by the way, working with brain injured people. The individuals who had brain injuries, who had the most true appraisal of what changes had occurred to them as a result of the brain injury,
Mhm.
those were the guys that did the best. The deeper the level of self-awareness, they use the term deficit awareness in speech
So let
pathology.
me ask this here so that we
Yeah,
are
yeah.
clear. So when we talk about someone who's had a brain injury, we are talking about someone who had an accident. Like, how serious is this? What's an
Oh,
example?
it could be a car accident, it could be falling off of a, you know, two-story ladder, it could be any of these things, but when you would have this brain injury, and everything was disrupted, what typically happens is that these individuals may not even know anything happened to them. So, they
Okay.
might have a yeah, yeah, so they might have a really big memory problem, and, they might say, "Well, I forgot that, but if I was at home, I wouldn't forget that." Or they do this thing called confabulation where they would just fill in the blanks of the story. They'd have like they'd remember like 10% of it, and then the other 90% was this thing called a confabulation, which is just filling in some sort of a storyline, but they wouldn't realize at the end of the day that their memory was that deeply affected.
Okay. So an example, like we would go to the store, we would
Yep,
buy ice cream or something,
yep,
and they would completely forget that we bought ice cream, but they
yep,
would just remember that we walked in the house.
yep, yep. They
Okay.
Yep, and or it can be any level of memory, but memory was something that was deeply affected a lot of times with brain injured people. But the fact is that many of them did not understand not just the extent of it,
Mm.
but what that actually meant for them functionally.
Oh wow. Now
Okay?
you are getting into a different part that I'm actually curious.
All
So
right, all right.
someone can have a brain injury
Yep,
that does not necessarily affect their memory or affects their memory in a certain way.
yep.
Oh wow. So I'm mind blown right now because I was thinking if someone has a brain injury, it means their memory is affected.
Yep. It can be any part of it. I mean, the point being that when the brain changes either by way of an injury or a stroke or whatever, individuals change and they very seldom know what those changes are, but also what that means functionally for how they can get on, and even getting them to the level where they even care about those changes.
Hmm.
So, moving this back into our original conversation around saboteurs also have an idea of self-awareness that goes
Mhm.
with it. This idea that, you know, oh, I'm an avoider, so what? Everything works its way out. Well, that's a really low level of self-awareness because I don't know how the people around me are reacting because I'm, trying to just get out of something. I don't even know how they're responding to any of this because my level of self-awareness does not allow me to even know that. And then once I know that, then I actually have to care. Like I have to say, that somebody actually is affected by this. And then I have to make the changes. So it comes in layers, I guess is what I'm
So
saying.
will an example be like, okay, you go to a funeral
Yep,
and it's a 95-year-old
yep,
person who passed away, and then everyone is crying and you're just like, oh stop, they're 95. Like
yep,
you know,
yep.
that
That would be like that's another saboteur, actually. That's a hyper rational way to deal with a funeral. But this you absolutely get on an important point here
Mhm.
is you are not aware of the impact that death has on these loved ones at a really gut level or at a really in the bones level. You might be saying, "Yeah, yeah, that was their mother. Of course they're gonna be upset." But that's not the same thing as feeling that empathy in your bones.
Mm,
You
mm,
s you see what I mean by that?
mm. So then this will be really hard for us men,
Yeah.
especially who are told, you're not supposed to have all these feelings. You're not supposed to be all like it's feminine. Let this feminine side of you
Yep.
come out. So working with a coach will let that feminine side, if I may, come out. But is that a good thing?
Well, I'm really glad you brought that up too. There's so many topics in coaching that you can really learn a lot from. So
Yeah.
what you've just hit on is this thing called emotional intelligence and emotional awareness.
Okay.
So there is this sense that, particularly among men, but even some women, that being in touch with your emotions is this like soft
Hmm, hmm.
thing. But what it really is it provides a doorway to actually resolve a situation. So
Mm.
I'll give you an example. So one day, my daughter was putting her stuff together to get ready to go back to school. And I came up there, "Hey, how's it going?" Mainly, I was going to bring her lunch or something like that. And she absolutely just, just madder than a hornet. I stepped out and but there was nothing specific. It was just, "No, I don't want lunch. No, like this." And I went downstairs and I sent her a text and I said, "Now," and of course she's the daughter of a coach, so she expected this kind of question. I
Yeah.
said, "What is really going on? What's the emotion?" And she texted back, "I feel overwhelmed."
Mm.
Now, overwhelmed is much different than garden variety upset,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So let me ask you, if I was just garden variety upset or you knew I was overwhelmed, would it change how you helped me out?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would approach you differently.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
if you knew I was overwhelmed, what would you do?
I'll probably ask if there's anything I can help you take that some of that off your shoulders. Or,
Yes. Now that I was very specific with you, you knew exactly how to come and help me.
Yep.
If you don't if you don't have a nuanced feeling about emotions,
Mhm, mhm.
you leave a lot of possibilities
On the table.
on the table
Mm.
because people don't know how to help you. So there's a real good reason to understand what those emotions mean. Now, just circling back to the saboteurs,
Good.
one
Yeah.
of the saboteurs is this hyper rational where you try to ignore all of your emotions and you say no, if it's not logical, you're like Spock from Star Trek. The problem with that is that you're a human being, so of course you have emotions, and in fact, if you don't pay attention to them,
Mhm.
you're only using half your brain. You're not using your full array of skills.
Mm, mm.
And so if you were able to go and say you're overwhelmed rather than I'm just mad, I'm irritable, whatever, people aren't gonna be able to help you out. You're not gonna be able to help yourself out necessarily either, for that matter.
So then, how does one get to know what their saboteurs are? What their, I mean, what are the things that are standing in their way? Because at the end of the day, my listeners, they
Yep,
want to build a superhuman mindset, and
yep,
they want to build themselves to climb up to their highest potential. How do they do that?
yep, okay. So there's a really the first step in any change and getting to the super high, you know, superhuman
Yeah.
level is superhumans first and foremost have a great sense of self-awareness.
Okay.
So the first thing one of your listeners can do is to go to positiveintelligence.com
Okay.
and just take the saboteur assessment. You did that and find out which of these 9 ways can a person, are you getting in your own way? We talked about a couple of them. Do you tend to avoid things? Do you tend to discount your emotions like you're hyper rational? Are you restless? Do you jump from thing to thing? So you never really accomplish anything because you keep jumping around. That assessment is going to help you define what your likely pattern is that you in how you get in your own way. So that's the first thing your listeners can do.
So it's
Get that information.
www.positiveintelligence.com.
Yes, yes, and
Right.
take the saboteur assessment.
Okay. And take
Yep,
this your assessment. So
yep,
once they take this assessment, now they know exactly what it is that they what stands in their way. Then
Yep.
what
Yep.
happens?
Yep, yep. So they can read the report and they can say, okay, this makes a little bit of sense. I'm going to guess that there's two things that are going to happen when they read the saboteur report. The
Okay.
first one will be they'll see their saboteurs and they'll go, well, if you have to be a hyperachiever, I guess that's the best one to be. And so you'll maybe not really initially see that this is actually getting in your own way, because the nature of a saboteur is it convinces you that you actually need it. Okay.
Okay.
So that's the first thing. The other thing that often happens is when people take this assessment, they go, wow, I got to figure out what kind of saboteur my wife is because she's always getting in her own way. In other words, because of the nature of self-awareness, we're going to see the problem in somebody else first. So
Yep.
those are the two things that will often happen. Now, I'm going to urge your listeners to go onto my website and book a consultation, and I'll help them understand their report. So if they get their report and they want to know, what does this actually mean? I'll take them through the first conversation free of charge, talking about this is what it means. This is their first step in the self-awareness journey. And then from there, I'll tell them, this is how you can work with it if you wish. The one thing you don't want to do is get in your own way. So the first thing is, how am I getting in my own way? Oh, all right. And then have that first conversation just to get you started on that thinking.
Okay.
So,
All right. So you get that. To all my listeners, definitely check this out. It was very eye opening for me. I honestly was just like, wait, have they been spying on me?
yeah.
So that brings me to the next question though. How
Mhm.
is this very different from, how is this any different from, doing the Myers Briggs or any
Okay.
other ones that people have out?
You know what? I am so glad you asked, because I'm also a Myers-Briggs master practitioner. So I understand those theories, the theory behind Myers-Briggs and personality type. I understand that through and through. Here's what makes positive intelligence and the Myers-Briggs different, but also complementary and actually a great way to get to the superhuman
Yeah.
stage to level up. The Myers-Briggs is going to get sort of at the nature part of it. So how these the preferences and the personality patterns that are typical for a personality type, in your case ENTP,
Mhm.
that's sort of the nature. That's kind of how you're calibrated.
Okay.
Okay. Saboteurs is the nurture part. So, actually, one of my colleagues and I did some research where we looked at, if we look at somebody's personality type, can we also predict their saboteurs? And our answer was some of the time, but there was a lot
Hmm.
of variability. All right. So, for instance, my personality type is ENFP. I'm a restless avoider. All right. So that means I tend to jump from thing to thing unless I'm aware, unless I'm, with my self awareness, I do it a lot less. But I was jumping from thing to thing, thinking I was getting the most out of life like any good ENFP. Right. So, but the saboteur was telling me, "No, no, 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 no. What you're actually doing is you're getting in your own way. This restless avoider is making you jump from thing to thing. That might be true of your personality, but it's also the thing that's getting in your way." Now, my daughter is also an ENFP, but
Okay.
her saboteur is hyperachiever. So her thing is she dives into things so far and so all in, and everything has to be done at this super, super, super high level to the point where she exhausts herself and she has no way of deciding where she really wants to focus her energy.
Mm.
So that's the nature nurture of it. It's probably because her father was a demanding fellow, and that's where she got that hyperachieving thing.
Definitely not you.
Definitely not me. No. So that's how it's different is if you take them together, if you take Myers-Briggs together, like we have with you as an ENTP,
Yep.
and we take your positive intelligence, your hyperachiever, your restless, and we put them together, now we can have a really good conversation. We can say, this is kind of what typically is, this personality type is like.
Hmm. Hmm.
And here are some habits of mind that you acquired along the way that might be getting in your way, keeping you from being all that you can be.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
So then what is this whole idea about meditation and
Okay.
PQ repping?
Okay. I love it. PQ repping. It sounds like
Yes.
we should have a song. So, uh, it's a really interesting thing. So when you identify your saboteur is something that's been with you for a really, really long time. So
Okay.
when you think of brain pathways, those are brain pathways that have been around in your mind for a really, really long time.
Yep.
They're the first to be triggered. They're the most resilient, and they just happen so automatically.
Mm.
When you do a PQ rep, what you're trying to do is you're trying to bring yourself into the present moment and start to notice those patterns. And so when you slow your physiology down a little bit, when you slow your what I call brain fidgeting down a little bit,
Mhm.
you're actually able to see that and say, "Oh, wait a second. I'm actually getting really restless. Why am I pursuing this particular thing just because it's interesting, but it's not in alignment with my goals?"
Okay.
Right? So if I don't have a way of slowing down that habit of mind that I have to pivot to the next shiny penny, then I'm just going to keep doing that.
Mm. Mm.
So that's what the PQ repping is. So the PQ repping is those things that get you into the present moment. Slow yourself down just a bit. Aha, I'm trying to pivot over to this thing that just gets me off track, and then I get mad at myself because I didn't accomplish anything. You see
So
how that
then,
all goes? Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I'm thinking, okay, so for myself, great. But if we take this out, how does this benefit me in my relationships or anyone who's listening in their relationships? What does that change? Like,
Okay.
does that help you and your partner have a better, like, how?
Oh, yep, yep. Okay, perfect. So oftentimes what makes us fall into that saboteur pathway is some sort of a trigger.
Okay.
All right. So I'll give you an example.
Hmm.
So I mentioned my saboteurs are restless avoider.
Yep.
My husband, who's a surgeon, is a stickler. Now, being detail oriented is a good thing if you are a surgeon. You want your surgeon to be a perfectionist, right?
Yep.
Okay. But when they come home and they're asking about a hole in the yard, how did it get there? Right? And I don't know the answer, and they're still persisting, trying to get information out of me that I don't have, and I'm trying to slither away and avoid the conversation and say, "What do you want for dinner instead?" It's the thing. A simple question like, "How did the hole in the yard get there?" can turn into an enormous argument
Mm.
because now
Mm.
our saboteurs in the room are in the room. He's wanting to know how it got there. I'm telling him I don't know. He's saying she's withholding something because, she's an avoider, so she might be
Ah.
so she might be withholding the real reason,
Mhm.
whatever that is. I'm a I've been known to, what do I call myself? A lover of bad ideas. He knows I'm a lover of bad ideas. So he's probably thinking to himself, here's another one of her bad ideas that went wrong. And she's
Oh,
not telling me really what happened. So that's the
meanwhile, you have
dynamic.
no idea how the whole ended up in the yard.
I had no idea, but he wasn't buying it. He thought,
Yeah, because you're not answering the question.
that's exactly right. Because I'm saying, I don't know. I don't know. And he's like, well, you're not answering the question. So he's thinking, all right, what what scheme was she trying to pull off that went badly, right? So you can have the same kind of arguments and again
Hmm.
because these two saboteurs come into the room. I'm avoiding and he's trying to get information and I'm saying I don't know. He's saying yes you do. But
So
no, I really am not.
how did PQ repping and like knowing your saboteurs, knowing I know you call them your saboteurs are in the room, more
Yep,
like
yep.
to them as presence. So how do you get them out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as he was going on and on about this, I realized because I'd been doing my PQ reps,
Hmm.
slowed my mind down, and I was like, "You're avoiding. If you don't honestly know the answer to how the hole got there, but yet you're acting like you're hiding something,
Yep.
what else? Stop. What else can you do?" And I thought, you know what? Maybe there is an explanation for how it got there. So I
Mm,
actually turned to him and I said, you know what? I actually don't know that answer, but I will call the landscaper that was here on Tuesday and
mm,
find out. Well, now I've given him some information. End of conversation. He's not chasing me around anymore trying to get information out of me that he thinks I'm withholding.
mm.
Because a lot of times I have withheld information because I'm an avoider,
Waiter.
right?
Mm,
So I don't want to disrupt the peace. I don't want to deal with it. So
mm.
I just hope it all goes away. He'll forget about the hole, right? If I just if I just change the subject enough, he'll forget there's a hole in the yard.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
So, but
No,
yeah,
that is amazing. So, I mean, so like people, if you really want to understand, so slow your processes down, more
yep,
like the matrix, right? So you
yeah,
can
yeah,
slow time down and see everything that's happening
yep.
around you or going around, then
Hmm.
you can make the right decisions. And your decisions, a string of decisions become a pattern and it becomes part of your life. And then you are creating this new life. So,
That's exactly right, and you know what I was gonna tell you too,
mhm.
because of what's been going on with COVID,
Mm,
everybody is under a tremendous amount of stress, and you see a lot of relationships that are cracking, and it's that stress that is creating those saboteur patterns that people have with each other, all the time, and so if people can slow themselves down and say, "All right, we're just gonna worry about today, what is it we want to accomplish instead of getting, you know, tied up in the uncertainty of things and um now you're sabotage. Now you're getting in your own way because now you can't even function because you're worried about tomorrow or what's the COVID thing going to look like next week or that kind of thing. I have a brother who is a bit hyper vigilant about this whole thing and he's making himself miserable.
mm,
So anyway,
mm. Wow. Amazing. Amazing. So I think we are running out of time. We can
okay.
go on and on and on and on and on. But I want to ask you, what
What?
are the three things you will tell everyone who is listening to your voice right now to go and do?
Okay. So the first thing is today and long term, always look to develop your self awareness, um, not only through feedback from others, but really look at how self-aware you truly are.
Mm,
Do you know not only what your tendencies are, but what are their impact not only on your performance but on the relationships
yep.
around you. So that's the first thing. Always be aware of the self-awareness. Secondly, start to explore how you can slow yourself down enough so that you can pay attention. I think the Matrix was a great metaphor that or slow down enough so you can actually see it so now you can pivot. Okay.
Okay.
And then the third thing is to work from the assumption that the people are around you aren't necessarily going to change and you're not going to change them.
Mm.
And so learn how to navigate around those things. They may surprise you and change, but if you hold your breath and you try to change them, but you don't pay attention to your own self development, you're going to have the same kinds of conflicts again and again. So, you know, I didn't I with this whole example with my husband, I had to realize it was me that had to change or me that had to do something differently and not turn around and expect him to change. In other words, why are you asking me these questions? That's not going to get me anywhere. So, s- build your self-awareness and slow yourself down and then realize that you're gonna hold your breath a really long time if you think if everybody's gonna change
Woo!
enough to satisfy you.
Yeah. So
So
my last question that I have for
sure,
you is that this is what I
sure.
ask everyone who gets on the show.
Yep.
What is your superhuman power?
My superhuman power. I think my superhuman power is helping people uncover the potential in a way that's n really fun,
Mm,
non-judgmental, energetic. It's a really pleasant process. I back when I was a speech pathologist,
mhm,
my patients all loved me because they always when we were done with our session, they were really energized and they had a lot of fun. When I raised my kids, it wasn't about the rules. It was really about helping them develop judgment, self-awareness, and have a lot of laughs along the way.
wow.
I think that that's my contribution to the world is to help people get excited about who they are, discover who they are, and do it in a way that's fun and is not judgmental.
Yeah, people, I think she said it all. I'm a testimony to this. Working with her, having sessions with her has really, really, really helped me to step away from blocking me.
Yeah,
And I'm glad we have people like you, Anne.
yeah. Oh, it's just so much fun. I always look forward to our time together because our conversations are so energizing.
Yeah,
They
it
really are.
is.
And that is the key to coaching. If you come out of a session with more energy than before you went in,
Mhm.
that's how you know that you're working with a good coach. So if you decide, I'm going to go find a coach, whoever it is, it's not Ann Holm, it's somebody else, and you say, I want a sample session.
Mm,
And if you walk out of there with a higher level of energy than when you walked in,
mhm.
you know you're on the right track.
Wow. All right. So, where can people find you?
They can find me at www.annholm.net. So ANNHOLM.net. I give free sample sessions so you can decide whether or not, the energy that you left the session with is better than the energy that you brought to the session. Um, love to talk to you.
All right,
All right.
people. It has been the superhuman mindset, and we will chat again.
Wonderful. It's
All right.
great.
Thank you, Anne.